All right, welcome everybody to another World of welcome everybody to the World of Ability Podcast Network. My name is Emily Gomer, and we are excited to bring you another episode of the World of Ability, where we are bringing together everybody with the disability and people without a disability, and bring everybody together. To bring everything together to be able to collaborate and work together and so on. But this show network was started 4 years ago on the 30th anniversary of the Americans with Disabilities Act passage, and co-founded by Kurt Roskoff and our partner Marcus Hart of Transforming Media. And so we are all about everybody's welcome to be on the show. So if you are interested in being on the show, let us know, and we'll get that worked out. We are working with the Disability Channel that is headquartered in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. It's fine with people with disabilities and veterans, as well as their organizations here. And so this is going to be a great show. And I'm a part of the Autism Society as well. That's planning a integral conference in the fall. But I think we are going to get this kicked off here. We have some great guests here today. So I'm going to bring in Kurt to. Hi, welcome, Kurt. What are your thoughts for today in the show, and how's it going?
It is going great. What an honor and a privilege it is to be able to have the responses we continue to get and the participation, the expertise brought forward for this Your World of Ability podcast show, the anchor show for, as Emily said, the World of Ability Podcast Network. So again, when we come out and we're doing this work, can't do everything in one episode. So I do describe kind of what our format is for steering our content curation throughout the year. We look to have a little balance what we do. So the conversation starter to propel again a complete year of programming is looking and considering how the work we do and everything we do in life, what it looks like from the perspective of people with disabilities. And I kind of get some segments of the disability population reference that kind of give people an idea of how we take a look at this. So we're considering people for sure with intellectual and developmental disabilities, the deaf community, blind community, people with physical disabilities, everybody around the world that's living their life journey right now in chronic pain, those who have a goal of substance use reduction, and the whole field of mental health. So some of this is like on substance use reduction, chronic pain, and mental health. That doesn't mean that those entire populations are people with disabilities, but there is quite an intersection, like in the agency work where the aging services get with the disability services, because we know that half of our seniors we know are in that field of having some sort of a disability or benefiting in some way from what is brought forth from disability services. So lots to be said there. And this is an experience. It's like the more you know, the more you realize what you don't know. So we're glad to have our panelists and friends here that we've gotten to meet through the Happy Neighborhood Project. So you're going to really feel the energy here because we got to know each other from HMP, which is the happiest place in the world for business people. So Emily, I understand that we're going to get started off in a doggone good way with our friend from the HMP, Deb. You want to give a little lead into Debbie, and then we'll let her get us started on our panelist reviews. Go ahead, Emily.
Okay, so I'm bringing Debbie here, but Debbie, as Kurt said, we've been through the Happy Neighborhood Project. It was out in Arizona, and is with the organization that has treats for our furry friends, as well as there's stuff for humans as well, that involves a special kind of mushroom. And so, and she also we're also helping her with her podcast that she does on Tuesday evenings, called The World of Pets. But Debbie, why don't you come in here and say a little more about who you are, what you do, anything like that?
Thank you, Emily. Oh my gosh, my voice is. I developed a cold when I went to the conference. I'm not sure if I caught it from somebody else, if I couldn't get the hotel room heat and cooling adjusted correctly, but I'm not much energy and I sound horrible, so I'll try to be brief. But yes, debspets.com. I do promote immune support in both for both pets and for humans. And Emily said we do use a special kind of mushroom. It's not a mushroom that gets you high. So if you would like a mushroom that gets you high, you have to go someplace else. But it is the most potent of all the medicinal mushrooms. So would love to share that more with people. And it's, as Emily said, treats for our pets. We tell them it's treats, but it's really supplements. So don't tell your pets that. No supplements. Just tell them that it's a treat, and they'll love it. So, what else, Kurt? What questions do you have for me?
While we're talking your world of ability, this is about people with disabilities, and we've talked in the past about guide dogs and service animals, comfort animals, and so the role that animals and pets play for people with disabilities, and to look at accessibility to having pets, because it's something to consider, like how well are we doing giving independent living and the resources for people with disabilities to have a pet, if they have, like, say, physical disabilities and so forth. Kind of in the realm of all of that, kind of what are you finding in terms of progress being made, and maybe some wish list things that you wish some things would be better, that more people with disabilities could have greater enjoyment of pets?
Yeah, I think one of my favorite episodes that we've had on the podcast, and the podcast is at World of Pets Podcast. You've got to put podcast on the end of that title, because otherwise they'll just give you a bunch of stuff about pets. But so at World of Pets at World of Pets Podcast, and it is on YouTube at 6 p.m. Pacific time on Tuesdays. So we've had one gentleman on there twice that has a dog that he actually got from the rescue here in Tucson. I'm in Tucson, Arizona area, and he found out about a place up in Washington, or he's living in Washington. The place is actually in Idaho. It's a nonprofit, and he can go to the nonprofit. They hooked up his dog with the Idaho State prison system. They have inmates that are trained in training the dogs, which to me, it just gives me goosebumps, because obviously the inmates are going to find something good about being able to relate to the pets that they're training. So his dog actually started a week or two ago. And so we talked to him before, and then he came on to tell us what had happened about having a delay in the start of his program, because the dogs had gotten kennel cough in the training class before his. So they had to wait until the pet people said, the pet people said that you've got the facility adequately trained or adequately cleaned. Sorry. So for 2 months, the pet is going to be trained by those inmates, and then will go to the nonprofit, and the nonprofit will teach them to do the specialized thing. And that would be reminding him what time to take his medication, which I think is pretty phenomenal. If he drops a pouch of his medication, the dog will be trained to pick it up and hand it to it, and a couple other things besides that will help him with his disabilities, which are PTSD type things. And then he also has some back issues. So I think that is pretty phenomenal that the dogs can be trained for that. That the people are excited about it, obviously. And yeah, I think that, like I said, I think that's my favorite episode. And we're going to have him on when the pet comes home, and so that he can we can see that instead of going around and doing what he wants to do, I'm sorry, dog's a female. What she wants to do, she's going to be trained to listen to his commands.
Excellent. Excellent. So Emily, what do you have?
No, I just said it's awesome.
That's awesome. You're right. So Debbie, with what you do with your Deb's Pets business and everything you have to offer and what you're trying to bring forth in value, if people have an idea that you might be able to answer questions, you might have a little something that they need, the nutritional side, so forth, the supplement side. How do they get a hold of you? Kind of where's a good point that if people are first learning about you right here at World of Ability, how do they reach out to you and continue the journey with you?
debspets.com, or they can reach me on LinkedIn, and it's Debbie-Hayes-AZ. So linkedin.com/n/Debbie DEBBIE-Hayes-AZ. And I know that Emily's taking care of me because she helps me think in advance. Thank you, Emily.
There you go. So we do have some other guests and panelists here to keep moving with it. Debbie, obviously you're able to stay on. You said you didn't know how long you'd be able to stay on, but you're welcome to interact with our other guests. Emily, do you have anything we want to do with Debbie before going to your next guests and our collaborators here? Or are we ready to go to the next segment?
I'm not sure, but I think we can go next guest if anything comes up. We can bring Debbie back. But so I think our next guest is an author, app developer, sign language interpreter, among other things, who was living in Hawaii when we met her, but is now currently in Mexico. So I'm gonna bring in Mary Ann here. So Mary Ann, why don't you say a little more about who you are, what you do, and if you had somebody with you that like to say something and as well.
Yes, thank you so much, Emily and Kurt. World of Ability. I met you through the Happy Neighborhood Projects as a co-host, and I was the sign language interpreter, and met many amazing people. And so honored to be here on the World of Ability podcast, sponsored by Jay and the Canadian station and Lawrence Wingate Studios, all the sponsors. And it's been an honor to bring different guests in every week with different topics. So Emily, if you could pull up my website, I would like to review my website, actsofkindnessseries.com. And I just want to give a big shout out and thank you to another guest, Trevor Gibbs, who will be joining us. Trevor Gibbs is the web detective. We met through Happy Neighborhood Projects. And he informed us that all websites need to be ADA compliant. That's American Disabilities Act compliant. And George Bush signed the American Disabilities Act 30 some years ago when I was a case manager with the deaf. And through my journey, through creation, I've created the Acts of Kindness series featuring 200 folk Manus puppets. And no one has done anything with sign language characters and animation. We have a soundtrack by Lucy Lynch in The Perfect Way. We have a leading lady, that's Chelsea, the courageous sign language chicken, who interprets sign language for Harry, the hard of hearing rabbit, with another co-host, Eve, the finger spelling bumblebee. In our second book, Rabbit Acts of Kindness, No Bully. And scrolling down here, Trevor Gibbs evaluated the website to make sure the text, the sizes, the fonts are readable for visually impaired, color blindness. And Trevor can talk a little bit more when I'm done here. And he also helped me upload Chelsea, the courageous sign language chicken, Dr. Fingers, the finger spelling hermit crab, and Eve, the finger spelling bumblebee onto YouTube. Where I created videos through my Fiverr team in Pakistan, the signing characters doing the ASL finger spelling 26-letter alphabet. So there's Dr. Fingers there. And if you want to scroll down more, through the pandemic, we received some pandemic unemployment assistance where I became federally trademarked, and I started to create Apple app games for online courses of each of the books. So the good news is that all classrooms, teachers in the United States of America can request copies of the books from an organization called donorschoose.org. That's donorschoose.org. They can request the books, the puppets, post it, someone will come through. 2017, Good Morning America raised millions of dollars over a weekend for teachers requesting items and products for them to have in their classroom. So there is the 26 letters of the alphabet. And that is me with Eve, the finger spelling bumblebee, the puppet. And that's a glove puppet by Folk Manus. They're amazing puppets. And you can actually do sign language with them. So they're great tools, especially with their elementary education kids. I'm on the social emotional learning curriculum. And I'm going to be introducing Juanita to talk about her passion and education with the double masters and working with beehives and everything. So I will be introducing her a little bit later there. And Emily, I don't know if you can take us to the YouTube channel with Eve, the finger spelling bumblebee, to show you what Trevor Gibbs helped me do. Those are the app games there. And if you scroll down too, you can see one of the app games. That's Rabbit Acts of Kindness. So there's Eve, the finger spelling bumblebee there with Harry, the hard of hearing rabbit. We want to finger spell the word rabbit. So again, you can go to the YouTube channel, learn how to do the ASL 26-letter alphabet, and then go play the games. So go out and play on Apple today. So if I could bring in Trevor Gibbs right now. Trevor, can you tell us a little bit more about what you do in evaluating my website that made it ADA compliant?
Oh, thank you for having me here today. It's always a pleasure to come and give you some tips and information about what we do. I go by the Web Detective, and the Web Detective is here to help and protect and serve your brand. What we primarily do is look at your website to see how compliant it is. One of those things, as Marianne is just saying, is accessible websites is a legal requirement to make sure that everybody has equal opportunities to gain information, access to services, and be able to purchase items online. An interesting fact that the disability community spends around $480 billion a year online on products and services. There's only one group that spends a little bit more than that, around about $490 to $500 billion online. I don't call them a group of spenders. I call them influencers because it's teenagers. And most teenagers ask parents to spend money for them. Now, when you think about that, an opportunity for your business when on average 1 in 4 people tend to have a disability is pretty easy to make sure that your online information and services should be accessible. Now, some of those things are really easy to take care of. People with visual impairment, a lot of them will use special technology, like a screen reader. So when they go through your website, everything that you do not see is what a blind person is actually going to look at. And we're talking about the code of that website. Those screen readers will read all the text that are on the website. It doesn't translate images, so that's why it's very important to put a description against every image. That image needs to be given what they call an alt text, because that way people have a better understanding through their screen readers of what these images are dictating. Color is also very important. Font sizes are very important. And there are ways to consider people with cognitive disorders. If you have things with lots of slabs of text and it's not broken up into sections like Marianne's here, she has nice sections on her website. So that way you have small pieces and chunks of information to read before you move on to the next section. You know, you don't have things that are too busy and not built like should we say, an encyclopedia, because nobody wants to read slabs of text alone. So those are the sort of things that I do for accessibility, and obviously we can talk a little bit more about that in a while.
Great. Thank you so much, Trevor. And I'm going to pass this over now to Juanita, and I'll give Emily some time to go on our YouTube, the Acts of Kindness series, to find Eve, the fingerspelling bumblebee, so we can show her doing the 26 letters of the alphabet and the Apple app game. So Emily, thank you so much for showing that website. You're an amazing podcast engineer. We couldn't do it without you, and Kurt every Saturday on the World of Ability. So, and Transform You Media. And I'd like to introduce Juanita here. Juanita has a double master's from Canada. She has a background in bees. She's a very busy 80-year-old lady here. And real excited that she's here, my neighbor, learning so much more. And she wants to do more with us on the podcast. So we found out this Tuesday at the San Carlos Yacht Club is they're having the movie called The Beekeeper. And I believe it's a documentary and about some charity organizations. Some things are not right. I'm not sure. It's going to be very interesting to go to this event at the San Carlos Yacht Club. And yes, we are getting ready for the San Carlos Tucson Sailor Club are coming down for their regatta. And I'm going to be on a boat that apparently Jimmy Buffett was on. It's called Tequila Flashback. And so we're getting ready here, and we're going to be going on a boat cruise this tomorrow for Mother's Day. So I'm really excited for these activities to get back on water and introduce our new guests. So I want to introduce Juanita here, and Juanita will give us information about bees, the busy life of bees and beehives, go on global and worldwide, and hopefully we'll get Leon McCloughan on here a little bit later. So Emily, if you could contact Leon, he's with Clean Water Foundation. He's bringing filters worldwide, and we're partnering to bring my books out there to get filters to schools as well. So Juanita, take it away. Hang on. Oh, shoot. Give me a second here.
Good morning, everybody. Just delighted to be on with you this morning. My story started 76 years ago. As was suggested, I've been a gardener for a lengthy period of time. But when I was 4 years old, it was shortly after World War II, and the air raid shelters were being dug out of the ground and disassembled and taken away. So as a result of that, my grandmother, wise lady, gave me a whole stretch of the garden, now a garden, that I could take over for my.
Okay, well, we're Look like they're frozen.
There we go.
Okay, so back here again. Yeah, so my love of gardening started very, very early on and has continued to this day. Moved to Canada in 1962, and I began taking night school classes and early childhood education, progressed, as was said, to a double master's in adult education. Fascinating. I can honestly tell you that I learned as much, if not more, working with people in that field. So very, very exciting time. Moved to Canada in 1962, put in a small garden, mid-70s, moved to the Kootenays, the West Kootenays in British Columbia in 1990s, and started gardening in a serious way at that point. I kept hearing this term, native pollinators, and I thought, well, that's interesting. Does it help gardening? Checked it out, read lots about it, got really excited, and started putting together an adult education workshop for hobbyists and gardeners called it Native Bees, What's the Buzz? And that's how it started out. But as a result of continued research, recognized that pollination was the job of far more species than simply native bees, that there are a whole host of native pollinators, and they're incredibly important. In fact, our whole food system depends on them. So I'd like to give you an overview of some of the information that I've uncovered, some of the discoveries I've made, why I designed and presented workshops in the West Kootenays and elsewhere on the topic of native pollinators. So I'll talk a bit about the why, the what, and the how. And you don't have to be an expert gardener to adopt some of these methods. They're very, very simple. And yeah, really easy for just about anybody to follow and develop further themselves. Well, why? Why is it important? The worldwide concern we have right now concerning the environment. We can all make a difference, every single one of us. You don't have to be an expert in any area. And the results are really quite remarkable and have been proven over and again. So our survival depends on the work of native pollinators. It goes much broader than simply bees, much broader, wider than just bees in general. So this plays a critical role worldwide in production of essential fruits, vegetables, forage crops, and production of any and all agriculture and home gardens. So 30% of food and fiber crops throughout the world depend on reproduction. Fruits, seeds provided 15 to 30% of our food and beverage consumed by humans worldwide. Absolutely vital. 1 in 4 of every mouthfuls of food that we drink or we have or drink consumed is produced by pollinators. So in the US, over 100 crop plants, 15% of United States fruit, nut, vegetables, and food, including meat and dairy, are produced through the work of native pollinators. So what we really need to look at is the fact that because of a number of issues, the environment, et cetera, and I'll go into some of those in more detail, is declining, and the management and native bees are threatened. The initiatives to produce soil, water, and air quality and enhance habitat. So native bees, as opposed to honeybees that we think of for pollinating, and that's actually not a major role that they play. Native bees are hardier and resistant. And I'm going to have a swallow of water here. I'm getting quite dry trying to get this in the period of time that we've got, and also at the same time give you useful information. Why should we, care? Roughly 35% of the food that we eat, 75% of flowering plants is pollinated by insects and animals, bees, wasps, moths, flies, birds, small animals, butterflies, etc. So ocean temperatures off the charts right now, broken every day for the past year. Atlantic currents that regulate our entire climate are going haywire. Coral reefs from Mexico to Australia are blistering to death. The ocean's nurseries are withering, and mass extinction of various animal, insect world are disappearing. So millions are already running from wildfires, famine, flood every year, and it's going to get worse. The summer is, interestingly enough, yeah, we used to call it summer and fall in the West Kootenays, and now instead of summer and fall, we refer to it as fire season. We actually anticipate that now, have to start planning at this point in time to actually survive the 3, 4, 5 months that we're anticipating as a result of environmental change. They're vital to our production, agriculture, home gardeners. As I say, 30% of food and fiber throughout the world depend on these various insects that I've already named and can certainly revisit again. Fruits and seeds provide 15 to 30% of food and beverage consumed by humans. So we're pretty convinced that this is a really important project. This is a really important focus for us. Over 100 crop plants, 15% of US fruit, nut, vegetable, including meat and dairy, as I mentioned before, are dependent on this cycle continuing in a successful fashion. So who should be concerned? We should be. Wild pollinators include the wild bees supplement or for pollination and setting of the crops, so that we actually are going to harvest on an ongoing basis. We could rely on that. There are lots of ways to attract pollinators. It sounds like such a dire situation, and going unattended it would be. However, we have lots and lots of possibilities. Anyone can get involved in this, and I would absolutely encourage every one of you to do so. That's from the apartment dweller with a window box, outdoors, a gardener in backyard, gardening, plant pots, acreages. If you have an acreage, which I did at one time, the sky's the limit. You can plant just about anything, encourage it to grow, set up the environment in such a fashion that you are attracting these pollinators. And you can, seriously, I have been shocked over and over again by the result in my harvest because I took this advice to heart. Plant variety, that's really important. And that also is dependent on climate being sustained and not having so many of the extremes that we are experiencing. Plant variety is important if you're setting up your garden, so that you're not putting the whole backyard in potatoes or carrots or some such. Plant variety attracts pollinators far more, as I mentioned, than bees. You tempt them with fragrance. Love strong, I'm thinking of various plants and bushes and so on, roses that I've planted. Yeah, lots of ways that you can do that. So providing places for them to nest and rest. A rotting log is one example, really easy to do. Providing a bath for the birds, bees, and others. Have an integrated pest management program. Do not use chemicals, unfortunately. They may give us, fairly fast results, but in the long term, they're not as healthy for the garden as our various products. I'm sorry, I'm going far down here. It's not nearly as effective as the native leaves left over from the summer, from the fall, what have you. And looking all the time towards what have I got in the garden that I can utilize as a natural component to support my growing, support the plants. If you have an integrated pest management, not chemicals as I mentioned, choose nurseries that give knowledgeable information. Lots and lots and lots of information available online. What I did do in preparation for this was to send a couple of resources. Who's the person who handles that for us that I sent the resources to?
Emily.
Emily. So Emily hopefully will be in a position to distribute
Oh,
those.
there.
There you go. And the topic being creating pollinator-friendly gardens. It's definitely a scary scenario right now, but there is nothing that is outside of what we can do, should do, and can enjoy doing to really change the situation around. Every single person who gets involved, who begins to work in those ways, have that awareness, recognizes what is working, what isn't working, reads up on the topic, read about native pollinators, because we constantly think of bees as being the major insects that are responsible for pollination, and that's not true. So the two resources, as I say, that I did send in, I think will give a lot more information. There's so much out there. It really is quite stunning how this has become the center of attention so quickly. So many educational institutions have picked up on it and are offering workshops for the average gardener, as I say. Somebody with a window box, people who are into farming and have extensive properties that they want to utilize. And quite frankly, when I look at the various plans, particularly looking at some of the partnerships between Canada, the US, and Mexico, when dealing with, dealing with some of these issues and coming up with solutions, coming up with very doable actions, then there's a lot to be hopeful for, and not just hopeful, but exciting. I, for example, and I'm certainly not the only one, tripled the goodies that I was getting from my garden by implementing just some of these very, very simple changes that I hadn't been aware of up until that point. So, you know, it's all doable. As I say, it's incredibly positive. Again, I'm sure this is the case for many people, feel helpless if I don't have a solution or I don't have a step that I feel I can take to alter the course of something that is very inconvenient or unhealthy or what have you. But this is definitely an area that's catching fire. We hear the term over and over and over again, not what we used to call it, which was native bees, but native pollinators. Much broader field to draw from, to learn from, to implement and share with other people. Not only that, we have the benefit of the wonderful results going to the garden and picking tomatoes that are twice the size as they were the year before. Healthy lettuces, apples off the tree, so on and so on. And the other part that I found quite interesting is I was sitting quietly and just observing some of my growing areas, insects I'd never ever seen before, watching them and, you know, how studious and how hardworking they were. And also the fact that, as I say, my yield tripled, quadrupled in various areas. And it's such an interesting area that really has no end to it, in the sense that the more you learn, the more you apply, the more you share with others and they share with you. There's a real sense of having a commitment. It's a very powerful feeling that we can individually and collectively really make inroads, really make changes, and not just on a personal level, but can influence all of those decisions that are being made in various areas, fields, agriculture, and so on. We can influence those. We can share the information that they are able to bring to our attention. And I feel actually way more positive and excited. It's been 5, maybe 7 years since I started looking at this. And I feel, as I say, a real sense of curiosity and excitement about the future, because I know that this is, if we, each and every one of us, get involved to some degree, smallest way to the largest way, to getting involved with various goings on in our communities that are really encouraging these methods, then it looks like we can, in fact, have a much rosier future than if we ignore, turn away, keep implementing some of these old-fashioned, not just old-fashioned, but uninformed methods of gardening, farming, and so on. As I said, it's a serious enough issue that all major countries are individually and collectively working together, looking for solutions and getting really wonderful results. Not saying the challenges aren't still happening, still aren't there, needing maybe a little bit more of a focus. But overall, as I said, when I look back 5, 10, 15, 20 years, we've made a lot of progress, and we're continuing to do so with time, energy, and real expertise dedicated to ensure that some of these challenges that we are facing right now are can address them, can be successful, and are creating turnarounds where previously people were feeling pretty negative about the possibility of that happening. I don't feel that way anymore. I feel quite strongly, as I say, that this is an area of real strength, creativity, people working hard, people being committed, and seeing real results, positive results, as a result in their partnerships and individually. Thank you.
All right. Wow, that was a lot of information. Thank you so much for sharing with us, Juanita.
That's why the 2 articles went to out for distribution, available for distribution.
Okay, Emily, we have any other guests here?
Yes,
Yes.
we do. Emily, take it away.
Hold on. So,
Good job.
Carrie, can you say something about her? Our next guest is don't really remember where we met her, but she's all about sustainability. It's on, but can you take over for a second?
Okay. Yeah, Veronica does also participate in the Happy Neighborhood Project, and Veronica has been able to be introduced to Trevor, and so we're going to do a 1, 2, 3 with Veronica. So Veronica, if you want to add to a little bit more of your autobiography and a little bit more of, who you are and what you do, and then your first chunk, and we'll see what we can do to get a little. And if you wanted to react to anything from Debbie Hayes or Marianne or Juanita or Trevor, if you have anything on them, feel free. Otherwise, if you want to dive into your first nugget, the floor is yours. Let's get us going, Veronica. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Kurt, and thank you to Emily and you for welcoming me to this evening's podcast. I know you're on air, and I know it's all about looking at less able or reaching out to people who are less able, but this is all about the Ability podcast. So thank you very much. And Happy Neighborhood Project certainly has been doing quite a lot this evening in terms of bringing you guests to the show, as well as bringing expertise such as Trevor and Marianne already mentioned how we helped her with her website, and certainly has helped me to look at an initial audit. And I'll come to that later in terms of what I do as it relates to sustainability. But I actually think it's a wonderful segue from hearing what Juanita spoke about in terms of pollinators and gardening, because in a previous life, or in my early career, I actually worked in agricultural research. And I used to have a garden. And yes, I'm partial to vegetables rather than animals or livestock. And what I remembered when I worked in research, integrated pest management had just started being introduced. So the concept was reducing the amount of pesticides that were being used to grow crops and look at ways in which you can minimize the amount of tilling that was also required. So it's using nature in a way that allowed you to gain maximum benefits with minimal damage to the soils as well as to the consumers of the products. or the crops that were grown. And so listening to Juanito's presentation, it reminded me of the fact that when we talk about sustainability, often people have different views as to what sustainability means. And so I usually would ask, when I say to people saying, oh, something is sustainable, I'd say, what do you mean? Because sometimes when people use the term sustainability, they actually simply mean something can be sustained or it's long lasting. But that's not the impression that they give in the context that they've used it. So my background is actually, I mentioned earlier, or research in my early career in agricultural research. I actually came out of a science background in terms of my postgraduate degree was in plant science. And I worked for a number of years at looking at how we can use science to propagate vegetatively propagated plants or plants that are grown traditionally from cuttings or small parts of the plants, not seeds, and to do that in a quick way, a rapid way. And so I worked as a tissue culture specialist, but there's also the advantage of being able to store that germplasm, those pieces of plants in artificial conditions, and therefore reduce the risk of loss of that genetic variety or the varieties that you need if they're kept in the field. So when I talk about sustainability now, and the reason I'm pleased that I have the opportunity to speak to your audience is that many small businesses and business founders are often people who've heard of the term sustainability, have heard about climate change, have heard about the importance of the planet, have heard that people matter, but they don't necessarily understand what does this have to do with me and my business. So I say when you're thinking as a business owner, or even if you're a consumer that would purchase from particular businesses, when you think about sustainability, there are usually three pillars or three legs of a stool that you ought to be thinking of. So first, there's the environmental strand, and many of us think about the planet and climate change, and therefore the implications in terms of the energy that we use, whether it comes from fossil fuel or a renewable source, whether that energy is the electricity in our homes or if you use gas, or whether that energy has to do with how you travel, if you're using a diesel or fossil fuel vehicle, or if you have you're driving an electric vehicle. It also has to do with how much you travel, how you design your website. So those are all aspects of the environment and the planet that we need to think about when we speak about sustainability. And I'll say in this first part, I'll say the other aspect that we think about is the people, because the people are important. So if you only think about the environmental part of it without recognizing that people, whether they're the consumers, whether they're the business founders, whether they're the innovators, whether they're the suppliers to the business, the staff working in the business, the people investing in the business, they all have different stakes and different interests. And you need to take that into consideration, these various interests, when you're thinking about what you can do in a business to integrate sustainability. So I'm based in the UK. I manage a business that provides sustainability support to other businesses primarily. And because of that, I'm always keen to understand how best we can help businesses to become to take greater ownership of sustainability, as well as recognize what they're already doing as it relates to integrating the various pillars of sustainability in their business. So I'd like to pause here, if that's okay, Kirk and Emily, and I'd be happy to answer any comments or observations based on what I said, which is the initial introduction to sustainability, talking about the multiple pillars and recognizing that whilst it may seem confusing at times in terms of how terms are used, we need to recognize that sustainability has many facets or many aspects.
Yep, that is great. We love the work that you do. And so we want to give our panelists a little bit of a chance here. Debbie, Trevor, Marianne, anybody have anything to follow? Trevor, what do you got?
Well, I'm always interested in what Dr. Veronica has to say, and I kind of have a two-part question. One is, when you think of sustainability, you start from the source and work your way out to the final solution that you're working with, or do you work backwards? Think about, this is what I'm doing. How far back should I go to keep it sustainable? So that's my first part of the question. And something you actually mentioned, which I'm very interested in, you said about making websites sustainable. And because that is an online asset, I don't think people can actually physically realize how they can actually make that sustainability or an asset sustainable, should I say.
Brilliant two-part question, Trevor, and thank you for that.
You're
I'd
welcome.
say in the first part where you asked about, well, looking at sustainability and thinking about what it actually means and where do I start? I would say we begin with where people are. So if we're doing a sustainability audit for a business, and we do have an online platform that allows us to ask some guided questions, collect that information, and begin to draft a report about that business's sustainability in order to prepare a roadmap or an action plan that they can move forward with. We begin by asking where people are. So we ask you about your source of energy, whether it's electricity or fossil fuel or gas or something else, whether it's renewable, where you're hosting your servers for your website, whether you know if they use renewable energy. We ask about travel, whether there's an option in your type of business to be able to work remotely from home, whether the people have to be in a particular place, your staff need to be in a particular place. How do you deal with attracting and retaining talent? Do you have a high churn of staff, or are you able to attract and retain talent? So it's beginning with where the business is to try and understand what they're doing, and then to make suggestions as to what else they can do. But at the same time, recognizing what they've already done. One of the examples I often use is think about email messages. I'm old enough to know when emails were messaging or computers were first introduced into offices. If you received an email, you printed it, so you had computers or printers in place, and then you filed it in a folder and you put it in a cabinet. Now, some of your listeners may be thinking, that sounds archaic or historic, but that was probably 30, 40 years ago when computers entered day-to-day work. Then later on, we learned that, no, you don't have to print everything. There are ways in which that information can be saved or stored in another place. So a hard drive usually was part of that early stage, or a floppy disk or a solid disk, or you then moved into the cloud as we do now. So in our approach, we begin with where businesses are. And so the email example is one which is saying, if you think about the way that we do business now, most small businesses have saved thousands of dollars over the years in terms of the amount to spend on stationery, paper, or printer cartridges. They've also saved lots of paper that they no longer use. They've also saved time in terms of having that process or having to make space for storage of printed material. So we begin with where the businesses are, acknowledge what they're already doing, and then look to see what else can be done to improve. And it's very much a gradual process rather than say you stop everything and then you start from scratch. No, businesses can't afford that. Or even if you're a charity or social enterprise, you don't have that luxury. So what you have to do in effect is work or have a plan as to how you can get to that particular place. Now, I've gone on at length in terms of the first one part of the question, where you asked me what it is or the approach that's taken. Can you just prompt me as to the second part of your question, please?
Sure. And thank
the
you
carbon,
for...
sorry, I just remembered it was the carbon reduction. So you use sustainability in terms of the website. We won't say sustainability in terms of the website. What we'll say is a low carbon website. So what that means is that because this term cloud is used to say somewhere away from where you're physically sitting, so you don't see where the data is stored. Data is usually stored someplace that has lots of servers to store or capture that data. These are physical places. And because of the heat generated from those places, you'll need air conditioning units to cool them. Traditionally, they're actually places now where they're capturing that heat to use in another way in order to get some of that energy reuse within the servers, or not having a need, reducing the need to have the air conditioning unit serving as a way of cooling the servers. But in terms of a website, when it's designed, it has images, it has a static, it has ways in which, or graphics, it has ways in which material or information is revealed. So what a web designer would do is to think about, what's the purpose of this piece of information, however well laid out? Do we need an image this size in order to convey the message? How can we do it in a way that it does not require as much energy to load that image, that the customer does not need to go through unnecessary steps to get to the information that they need? And by doing so, the web designer is able to reduce the amount of energy that is used in the process of obtaining the relevant information by any viewer to that website. So in effect, that is part of a business or any organization being able to reduce the amount of carbon that is emitted, or the carbon that is used when they have a website or any other digital asset. And we do offer, and so, sorry, I'm probably getting into my second or third 5-minute round, but we do offer a service that allows for businesses or anyone with a website to be able to get a review of their website and help support to be able to reduce the carbon emissions. And if they're an agency that has lots of websites that they're doing for clients, well, then they can be trained to do it themselves as well. So I hope that answers your two questions. Where do we start? And then the other part, what do I mean by a low carbon website?
I appreciate that, and it really did. And for me, the interesting one, when you think about it, and this actually helps not just for carbon emissions, the quicker a website can load, the easier it is for everybody, because everybody becomes impatient. So this is a trade up in that sense, as opposed to a trade off. You know, the faster we make it, the lighter we make the information to be processed, which is important. And also people with disabilities, you know, they don't have to feel that they have to wait for something to load either. And like you say about images, just by putting an alt text description on there, we really should have an option to either download those images or not, because even that would actually save us information, and not everybody would actually want to see it anyhow. So that we could actually take that requirement for screen readers and have an option. Do we just want to use the alt text, or do I want to view the image? So I can actually see as the accessibility side actually going into the future to actually make this better.
Indeed.
So-
And when you
Oh.
pointed out the accessibility part of it and people using screen readers, I recognize that there was a plus, and it's not only looking at carbon, because we were focused reducing carbon emissions. And then I realized, yes, we were ignoring the users, the people, and we're not making our websites, we're not making our digital roadmaps as accessible as they should be.
So it's interesting. Thank you.
I wanted to quick join in with I pitched this to Kurt and Emily last week, and I got Trevor here with us and talking about this. And so one, I want to thank you very much, Trevor, for evaluating the Acts of Kindness series website so that we are ADA compliant and not receiving a fine. You also introduced me to a web hostinger which will host my website for a 4-year plan for $130. It's amazing, because I was paying $130 a month with pandemic money, and now this is really a cost savings for me. And AI's technology has really come out to, you know, help out and do that. What I want to, with the screen part here, is I'm going to go into a different kind of little topic here. Is I have questions in regards to the grocery stores who have regular checkouts and self-checkouts, okay? And I read a year ago, whatever, that, you know, shoppers were going through Walmart and being arrested for items that were incorrect, etc. So I immediately called my deaf friend and said, do not ever go through a self-checkout anymore. You can't hear the scanner and you wear glasses, and I don't want anything to happen to you. I'm choosing not to do it. And what they're doing here now in Mexico at a chain here is they're making everybody do self-checkout. And I was helping my neighbor in his 70s, a retired attorney, a brilliant man, a brilliant chef, shop around this grocery store, get the discounts, and help him go through the line. And with his breathing and with a cane and a shopping cart. And last week, they were making everybody go through the self checkout. And here I am, I get the discounted cheese. And I don't want to go through the self-checkout. I want the clerk to do it. And I get there and the discounted cheese has a barcode on it and they want me to plug it in. Well, I didn't bring my glasses. And it just got really, really frustrating. I had a broken foot in the past and, my back hurts. I want to get in and out. I'm there early because it's Sunday and you want to get in before the beachgoers and everybody else. And it was just very, very frustrating for me. I came home, I was really upset. I took off on a rampant text to Kurt and Emily and said, I want to get Trevor Gibbs on here. I want to get his input about these grocery stores making us go through a line and self-checkout. Now, I was a clerk in college, don't get me wrong. I worked for like a Walgreens, it was a Perry Drugs. And I was a clerk, I worked in the pharmacies. But for persons with disabilities who can't stand and to go through the line and then to push the buttons and look at it as a computer screen and start picking out where I got to go. How do you weigh the produce? And then they don't offer you bags. So you got to bring your own bags in and you forget it. So you're standing there and you have 3,000 people in line stink eyeing you waiting to go through next. Okay. So that was my role last Sunday. And Trevor, I would like to get some information with the ADA with self-checkouts for people. And they're making us do it. You have no choice. And if not, we're going to go to the smaller little grocery store and have them do it. And especially with being deaf, you can't hear the scanners. Okay. And if something doesn't bloop, guess what? Or walking out with something alert or whatever. Again, it's just putting a lot more pressure on us, especially, seeing, being far away from the screen. The clerks are trained for that. They know the produce, they know what's on sale, they know the prices, and that's what they're trained to do. And now they're taking away jobs. And over here in Mexico, the baggers rely on us giving them pesos for tips as part of their salary. And I talked to the security guard from America. His wife is a manager at Walmart and he makes $15 a day. So pretty interesting sitting around gathering some information. But Trevor, I want to ask you, what's the ADA, your thoughts with this, with persons with disabilities having to go through self-checkout? What can we do? What can we do?
Well, there's a couple of things that I will address on that. First of all, if you go into the large supermarket stores and you've got the option of local retailers, support your local retailers. They're the ones that support your community more than anybody else. And that then brings you back to the human connection, because I think when we automate everything, we're getting a disconnection from humanity and its touch. And when we're talking here about having a place of ability, we need other humans for that interaction. So that's another story for maybe another show. You're right. When it comes to websites being accessible, that's all they've really thought about, because most other items that are meant to help people with disabilities is a specific tool. There are very few tools that, should we say, they are for disabled people and for non-disabled people. Now, you're right. If you don't hear the bleep, that's just because the software engineers haven't even heard of accessibility probably because this is why their websites were never built accessible in the first place. And if you think about this, it would be very easy just to put a color border around the screen. Like if it's being accepted, you could have it green. And if it's not accepted, it'd go red. But now I've entered another problem because people with color blindness don't see red. So now maybe if we have a tick and a cross, or a check mark and a cross for the Americans, by having that showing on the screen, at least you know the item is being scanned. Now, if there's a problem, of course, we need to call it in the system. That's where we need the human involvement. But again, it's very difficult to have these machines and technology built for everybody because generally 80-90% of those people tend not to have experienced people with disabilities. And it will get better because most of us grow into a disability as we become older. The world population is becoming older as an average year on year or 10 years at a time, whatever it is. So there's going to be a greater need. How they address it? Well, that's when you start protesting, just like all the people who were protesting originally about curb cuts, about why now websites have to be accessible, why the DOJ in the US have now deemed that Section 508 for all public entities and all governmental buildings, that there is no excuse. You will have to have your websites totally accessible. You can't have it partially acceptable. It has to be totally acceptable and compliant to the WCAG guidelines. Now that, I think they're actually given 18 months for governmental and public entities to have that done in the US. I just hope that the rest of the world actually follow, because again, the hardest cry that everybody goes up, oh, it costs too much to implement to put this. But I know Kurt will defend this one and say, actually, it's not the cost of the money that's so important, it's the accessibility. Does that help with your question, Marianne?
Yeah, I think we can tie this back in. We got a couple other guests and collaborators coming in here, folks we're working with deeply. I want to give Sherry Wallace a chance to come on in here. She is a crusader, disruptor, and you know, someone who is revolutionizing. We're hopping on the bandwagon to do it with her, to be able to disrupt the funeral industry and to get into the field of natural burial and to have a creative cemetery solution, including a membership program. So Sherry, I want to give you a chance to come in here and make sure everybody with the show knows exactly who you are and what you're doing. And if you have any reactions to our conversation you've been listening to, feel free. Otherwise, let's make sure we know what is Let's Be Trees.
So far I want to hook up with each and every one of you. We talked about the web detective last week. I think Marianne did, and I was hoping that I would catch you. I'm glad to meet you, Dr. Brooms. My project is so big, and I'm just a simple country girl, and I'm making all sorts of mistakes that we can't afford to make, and but it's so beautiful and big. We absolutely must get it done. And I would love your advice. And Marianne, I need your kindness campaign to mix with my kindness campaign, and we'll be doubly kind. And Papa John, I'm still waiting for your you were going to get me a list of what you thought that you might be able to do to promote the kindness campaign with me not being in town, you know. Once I know that, I'm happy to get the kindness campaign part of my project Santa approved. And so with that said, I'm Sherry Wallace, and I have created the Perfect Cemetery Society. We can't find one hole in what we're putting together. And that is, we are seeking people in every state to sign up to say, if we can get land there, you would be a member and be buried. Membership fee is a one-time fee, $100. You can get it when you're a kid and be buried there when you're ready. And so we're completely turning the funeral industry upside down. And the hardest part so far is getting people to believe it's true. And I've got rich people looking at me saying, you can't do that. There's too many rules. And then I got poor people saying, well, that can't be right. We've never gotten a break like this in our life. So I'm finding my way. And my goal was to make funerals free. And I didn't get there, but I got $100. And it's almost free. This program is so cool. We'll actually have the ability to pay dividends back to our members. So eventually you would get your $100 back. It might take a minute, but maybe not, depending on our donations, right, Kurt?
That's right. That's right. Boy, Sherry, you opened up a bag of gifts in many ways from your presence here right now in the show. So I want to get Santa on here. You know, she talked about your Santa approved program, and we've got some people who, like, maybe I don't even know if Trevor knows about your program. So let's make sure everyone knows, what does it take to be Santa approved, and what is it all about? What are you doing, Santa Papa John?
Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and I hope you're having a fantastic day. The sun is shining in Minnesota, and we're off to a roaring start. And yes, Santa likes to think outside the gift box, not just the box outside the gift box. And I've developed a couple of unique platforms and programs that are shaking up the world. But like Kurt said, yes, I do one-of-a-kind happy birthday videos. I do Santa check-in videos. A lady got a hold of me the other day and said, I had an exceptional customer service situation the other day. Can you make me up a quick video? Wouldn't it be cool to have Santa send out to one of your clients that you appreciate the extra work that they've done for you to make a task complete? I mean, we all take customer service for granted. So that's a very unique idea that, I can whip up a quick video, but this is the big one that Kurt is talking about. Everybody wants to be Santa approved. It's a very unique program that is starting to sprout legs, ladies and gentlemen. And it's cool because it's even trademarked already. People of, marketing people, I'm meeting all these marketing people and they're telling me, you better lock this down because it's a cool little idea. What I'm developing is a community of like-minded people that are positive. As my wife, Mrs. Claus, says, Santa's cause. Positivity, happiness, sharing, caring, and loving the fellow businessman or woman, as that case may be. So we're off to a roaring start, and it's a subscription service that simply allows Santa to advertise about your business and tell people about your business in a different format, because Santa is the #1 promoted character in the world. And Santa's been around for 1,753 years. Don't I look good? And I make people smile. It's been there for 14 years, ladies and gentlemen. So I got to utilize it. I can't disguise it. And in this goofy world that we live in, a lot of people don't even have a reason to smile. So I can come on board. I can walk around the corner. I can get out of a vehicle and I make people smile. And we need to do more of that. So there's the 60-second version of it, ladies and gentlemen. So I hope that enticed you enough. SantaPapaJohn.com is where it's at. And I'd love to answer questions.
Santa, it's Marianne of Waikiki. I've been a good girl all year long.
And how's Marianne doing today?
Well, Santa, I'm doing fantastic. I'm being kind, but I had to let go of my Apple laptop that brought all my intellectual property. I'm bringing my coloring books, writing my books. The laptop passed away. So I'm in seek of a new Apple computer. So we can continue to write the Acts of Kindness series. And so that's what I need your help with, Santa. And I want to be part of your program. And so we can bring these books worldwide, especially with Leah McLaughlin, Clean Water Foundation, Filters with Schools. And oh, by the way, I think we should learn some sign language so that you can be the deaf Santa, because deaf Santas are out there for the deaf community. And
Absolutely.
Emily, if you could,
I'm
Emily,
thinking
if
so
you
too.
could bring on a YouTube video that Trevor
I know.
Gibbs helped me
Mary-
upload.
Marianne, what's your link to your YouTube channel? I don't have the link.
Trevor Gibbs, it's the Acts of Kindness series, Eve the finger spelling bumblebee. And we can learn the 26 letters of the alphabet.
I tried typing that in and I wasn't finding it.
Okay. Trevor helped me. Trevor helped Emily. We uploaded it. But yeah, Santa, we got so much to do. And when I was in Hawaii, Santa was on a surfboard and they had a statue of Santa in the Walgreens, and I put a book in it. Yeah, he did the hula out there, Santa down. And so we got lots to talk about. And congratulations on your new podcast. I want to join you. So I'm having some technical difficulties without the laptop now, but we made the decision that it's no longer going to be working. And thank you very much, Senior Citizen Jim, for giving me that laptop to create the Acts of Kindness series, books, the flyers for HMP, all that is my intellectual property is on there. And well, it's time to recreate, Santa. So we're looking forward to it. So I'm in need of an Apple laptop.
Well, the easiest answer to that one, Kurt, and you're going to get a giggle out of this one, is Santa doesn't bring electronics. Santa is a toy manufacturer, not a electronic manufacturer. So sorry, you got to find another source for an Apple laptop computer.
Okay, so but Santa, what goes with my books now too is the Folk Manus puppets. So we have 200 Folk Manus puppets to go with the books and the coloring books to get us going in the next to the end of the year when Christmas does come and roll around. And I want to share a story with you last week too. So I walked down to the Riscotti thrift store, and people who donate items there, all that profits go to the San Carlos EMTs. That goes towards their salary. So I got up, it was warm, and I put on my little red jumpsuit to walk down with my red and white Nautica sailing shoes. And lo and behold, one of the nurses had this big bag of yellow, honey blee yellow for Juanita, all these dishes and a bee dish. Okay. And so I go, well, how much is it? She goes, 100 pesos, which is about $5. Well, they put it in a white big garbage bag for me. So I walked home from the Riscotti thrift store looking like your helper, your wife, walking down the road of San Carlos with my red outfit with a white bag full of yellow dishes in it. And I was laughing so hard and I was so happy. So we got good things coming with us. We got good products. We got good books to read. We got good puppets, and everybody's being of service. So we'll be on your show, Santa. Thank you so much for your time.
Awesome.
And Emily, if you can pull up the YouTube Eve the finger spelling bumblebee, we'll teach you the finger spelling alphabet later.
I look forward to that.
All right, folks, we're going to get back to Dr. Veronica here. We got her second nugget to drop here. So Veronica, what did you have as further content? You really stirred up our conversation. Way to go, Veronica. So what's next? Let's do it again.
Oh, Kirk, it's been incredible how the questions that Trevor asked, because it actually led nicely into the second part I was planning to speak about. And this was actually looking at the low carbon websites, but as well as digital marketing. So we spoke about sustainability being not only about the planet, whether it's the energy that you use or how you travel, but it's also about the people. And accessibility and making websites user-friendly as well as low carbon is one of the ways that you can do that through how you design the website, how you think about the customer journey. So what does that mean in practice for a business that is looking to think about how it uses its website, for example? Now, one of the questions that we ask is actually about hosting your website. You may be thinking, well, what does hosting a website have to do with sustainability? But I mentioned earlier about hosting a website requiring servers to keep the data, to keep that information so that it's available online. And you need to have cooling in those environments for that to happen. And cooling requires you to use energy. So one of the questions we encourage customers to answer or clients to answer, and we encourage any business owner or anyone designing a website to ask of their hosting company is, do you know if your website, your servers are using renewable energy? Do you know the places that are hosting the server, they're using energy that comes from the sun or wind energy or hydropower, or is it fossil fuel? Now that answer will help you as a business or an organization to decide whether you want to continue using that company to host. Because if the answer is, we don't know, well, of course you ask them if they can check for you and let you know. But if they say, no, we don't use it and we're not planning to, it means that next time your contract comes up for renewal, you'll want to be doing some comparison of other companies, other hosting companies that can provide you with an answer, which is a yes to using renewable energy. Now, why is that so important? It's important because if a company is cooling its servers and the energy that it's using is coming from fossil fuel, all that does is to increase the amount of carbon that is emitted indirectly by your business or through your business because you're using a server that is using fossil fuel. Now, why is the amount of carbon emitted relevant or important to any business? Because of that climate change scenario. Because the carbon is what is emitted into the atmosphere that then leads to the heating of the earth or the planet. And it's that heating that is causing the disruption to traditional weather patterns. And we heard Juanita talking about the fact that they no longer talk about, in her part of the world, in North America, they're no longer talking about spring and summer season or summer and fall season, but instead they're talking about fire season. And we've heard lots of reports around the world in terms of these huge fires, massive fires that have damaged individual homes and people's lives and communities that are struggling with that. But linked with the fires are also places where you have increase in heat or floods. And these are all disruptions, not only to businesses and to the lives of the customers who use the business, but there's also that disruption to supply chains. Because if it's growing food and you have floods, it can affect not only the amount of food that becomes available, but it can affect the quality of the food that you have, and it leads to fluctuations in supply and demand. So it's a joined up way of looking at what we do. So by simply looking at where is my website hosted, is it a company that uses renewable energy, can help you as an organization to say, well, you know what? At present, we're using a company that does not use renewable energy, but our plan is, or we intend to, in the next 18 months or the next 12 months or whatever that time period is, to look for a server, a hosting company whose servers use renewable energy. And I'll share with you an example of how people have been able to use even that simple aspect of energy to be creative. Here in the UK, there was a company that decided that instead of hosting the website servers in the traditional type of building that needs to be air conditioned, what they'll do is actually host it in a community sports hall, a swimming pool in particular. So what's the big deal about hosting it where there's a swimming pool? I see you nodding, Kirk. So maybe the idea is forming. You want to have a hazard a guess?
Yeah, I'm just venturing a guess that you're kind of covering both sides of the thermodynamics, that the heat generated from the storage units is useful in those sports areas, like maybe with the swimming pool, adding some heat so the water's warmer, whatever like that. Yeah, I like it.
Exactly. So this is not heat that you have to cool any longer. This is heat that serves a purpose to reduce the amount of heat that has to be used in the sports center for the heating of the pool. So it's a creative and innovation that came through looking for a solution to reducing energy. It's not everywhere that that would be appropriate, but I'm certain this can be replicated in many other places. And so if you think about it in terms of having a benefit to the community, having a benefit, or people having a benefit to the environment, and then giving that business an edge because they now have a service that they can offer that they weren't able to offer before. So it allows you to think of your business in a creative way, as well as thinking what actions you can take to reduce your emissions. Now, if we come to the social part of it, and again, this is around marketing, if you're thinking about your website, and yes, to increase accessibility and to make more users visit your website, it can be that you actually have a service or a product that reaches a much larger audience than traditionally. Because if someone has a disability, that does not mean that they suddenly stop using particular types of products. They are in the market for those products, but it's just that they're not able to do business with you because your website and your digital market material isn't designed to reach out to them. It doesn't have a text embedded in the graphics, for example, as Trevor would have mentioned earlier, which would allow people to hear or to read what it is that you're offering, even if they can't view or download the image. So it's being able to think of a wider range of users for your products or services and a way of getting your business to be getting that competitive edge. So the marketing is certainly one way that upskilling of website designers, people who are involved in marketing, can help them to find another solution or another step to integrating one of the pillars of sustainability that not only has an environmental benefit, but at the same time, it has a social benefit, so more people are able to access it, and then it has a benefit that affects the bottom line, which means it's reducing costs, but increasing your revenue and your reach of clients or customers. Is that helpful at this stage, or is that an appropriate point to pause for this?
Yeah, let's check in, Marianne, Juanita, Trevor, John, Sherry, any remarks, comments, questions, any concerns about the topic, suggestions? Anything from maybe Emily? You got anything to come back with?
Well, I just want to thank everybody for participating. And again, I would like to have another show with Trevor Gibbs, especially highlighting the ADA and the self-checkout. If we got to make a protest, we'll got to do what we got to do. But anyway, that's what I would like to do. And thank you so much for everybody being here. What a great topic. Unfortunately, on McLaughlin Clean Water Foundation couldn't be here, but I know he'll be with us in future events too. So I look forward to connecting with you, Santa and Sherry and Veronica. We want to be on your podcast. So we're having a little technical difficulty here in San Carlos, Mexico, but we want to be present. And thank you so much for Santa for being a present. And Emily, if you get a chance, did you find that YouTube Eve the finger spelling bumblebee? We got to teach Santa the 26 letters of the ASL finger spelling alphabet because he's going to want the Folkmanis puppets.
All right. So Emily, are we, oh, there it's coming right away. Here we go. So we got youtube.com up. Oh, just going to try it again. Got to make sure we're sharing system sounds to hear it. Oh, here we go. Third time's a charm. Here we go. How's it going, Emily?
You won't find any sounds on it, Kurt, because it's only sign language.
Oh, I
Yes.
didn't. Okay. I didn't know the whole scope of it. All right. Thanks for pointing
It's
that
okay.
out.
And I didn't put any music so that people can focus, especially children with autism. There's no distraction, so you can focus on the hands of the bee. Now the app games have music. There we go. Thank you so much, Trevor Gibbs. Look at this, Sienna. Look what we
You're
did.
welcome.
Here's the Acts of Kindness series. Now, everybody, if you get a chance, you can start doing your fingers, and you can do this at home for free. That's Eve, the finger spelling bumblebee. So thank you, Juanita, sharing the stories of the bee history. That's the letter A, B, there's C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, and Z. Now you know your ASL's ABCs. Thank you so much, Trevor Gibbs, for helping me upload them. They're the Acts of Kindness series. You can visit www.actsofkindnessseries.com. All classroom teachers in the United States of America can receive copies of the books from an organization called Donors Choose. So they can receive the books, the coloring books, and the Folk Manus Puppet Santa. So we look forward to bringing the good news of the Acts of Kindness series with you and your Santa project. Thank you so much, Kurt and Emily, for having us on this weekly show.
You bet. All right. So we came into this for the 1, 2, 3 from Veronica. So Veronica, do you still have a third part to finish off?
Yes, I'm happy to do that as a wrap up, and very clever. Thank you very much for sharing that, Marianne, and kudos to Trevor for making it happen. Very clever in terms of seeing the ABC that way from a bee. In wrapping up, I thought that I'd look at events or explore some of the ways in terms of looking at events and actually integrating some of what we spoke about. Because now when we talk about events and events that are fully accessible, we're talking about events that are not only done in person, physical places, sporting events or concerts or theater events or business events or family or community events. We're also talking about events happening online. And if events are happening online, for example, there are ways in which you can help that to make those events inclusive experiences. So beginning with how the process works to actually find out about the event. So where is it advertised? If it's online, it comes back to that website or that place online being accessible or available to all abilities to be able to read the information or listen to the information so that they can know what action they want to take in terms of taking action to attend an event, for example. This compares to what used to happen previously. If an organization had an event, and maybe this was quite prevalent pre-pandemic, it was usually an event in a physical place where everyone would have needed to travel who wanted to attend that event. If they were traveling, the choice was, are they using their own transportation or are they using public transportation? Depending on how far away it is, they need to say how much time they need to think about how much time will be spent on travel. And then there's some places that may not be fully accessible. And here in the UK, I can think of a friend who is a wheelchair user and who, for one of the business networking events, never attended. It's a couple, her husband attended those events, but she could not have attended those events because that particular venue didn't have full access to get into the venue. There wasn't a ramp available to get up to the first floor level or to wheel into the ground floor rather than having to climb stairs. It wasn't direct off the curb. So the building was not designed for people who were wheelchair users or people who would have had physical challenges in terms of accessing the venue. So when you're thinking about an event now, we actually have ways in which we can make the events more inclusive, and we can make the events more accessible. And this is a way of integrating sustainability. So the first strand, which is the environment, in terms of travel, for example, you're thinking, can this be done online instead of offline? If it's done online, how can we ensure that everyone has access? And I can see some of that actually happening on this show this evening, where there is a transcript available for some people who may want to be able to listen afterwards or to be able to follow the text rather than hearing the voices. You can also make it accessible by recording it so that people or listeners or viewers who may have different pace of reading or access to reading devices can read it in their own time, can listen to it in their own time. And by doing these actions or taking these actions, what in fact you're doing is not only reducing the amount of energy that is used for travel or making the event available, it's not only widening the number of people who can attend the event, but is also ensuring that people can have a way of following up after the event, can be able to process the information that is shared in their own way and in their own time, and to have a much better experience. What it's likely to do for the organization that is holding the event is that that organization is likely to be able to attract people from a larger or outside of its traditional geographic area, as well as people who may not be traditional users of that service. And I mentioned that because in a few months or later this year, early year fall, so September, October, we're looking to have a sustainability summit. And initially, when I was discussing with a couple of my associates what this could look like, we were thinking, yes, we don't want it to be a UK-based only event. Prior to the pandemic, we would not have had that discussion in that way. We'd have been thinking, well, it needs to be in the UK, or if it's outside of the UK, it has to be a physical place. And now we know it doesn't have to be. And therefore, it means we can plan for an event that has a wider reach, that meets the needs of more people, but it can be done online, and we can bring a range of expertise or speakers or case studies into a place online that can be available to many people over the course of a few hours, over 1 or 2 days, as well as thereafter. So I think when you have an organization, whether it's for profit or whether it is charitable or for purpose, you need to be thinking, which of these pillars of sustainability can I apply? Can I look through the particular lens and see how I can make my business better? How I can create greater value for the users, the customers, or the clients. And at the same time, I can improve my processes. I can be more competitive as a business, but at the same, without having losing the impact or the effectiveness of what it is that you're offering, whether it be products that you're selling or services that you're delivering. So with that, I'd like to wrap up my third segment, which is saying that as part of looking at how you integrate sustainability in what you do, the environment, the people, and the profit angle or the economic angle of what you're doing, is important that you take that approach to ways in which you market your business, as well as ways in which you deliver your service or products to your customers or your clients. And Kurt and Emily, thank you ever so much again for the opportunity to be on your radio show this evening and the live stream, and to reconnect with a couple of people through the Happy Neighborhood Project, and to meet some new people and to hear their experiences.
Absolutely. Wow, this has been a lot of fun, a lot of information, way to bundle up, different topics and one mutual interests. Marianne, Juanita, Trevor, John, Sherry, anything in reaction to what Veronica brought to us today, that last segment, sustainability? What are we thinking here today, folks?
A lot of very interesting news or information.
I have a lot of work to do.
Oh, I think the whole world's got a lot of work to do. That's why we need shows like this to bring better awareness. But no, it's surprising to think when you actually start delving into things like sustainability, the actual uses and benefits you can have without having to do it alone. It's really collaboration is an easy way to make more things sustainable.
Indeed. And thanks for that, Trevor. I'd say the longest journey begins with the first step. So it may seem overwhelming, but the place to start is here, meaning you look at where you are and then you start thinking of where you'd like to go. And the ripple effect is also effective. It doesn't have to be a huge splash because you need to be thinking, small steps, but they're incremental and they coalesce and they can make a huge difference. So longest journey begins with the first step and the ripple effect can be amazing.
That's what we're doing, right? One person at a time. We're going to change the funeral industry one person at a time. We're going to fix my website one person at a time. Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
good stuff, folks. So we're gonna check in with Emily here. Emily, you've really stirred up a big message today and a big collection. We got quite a collective of contacts, professionals here, Emily. We want to get the OMG EMG moment. Emily's middle initial is M, her initials are EMG. So Emily, what do you have for OMG EMG today?
Just wanted to thank everybody for coming on. We are here every Saturday at the same time. So everybody's welcome back, and to please invite your friends to join us as well. Special thanks to Marcus Hart, Transfer Me Media, Zach Clayton of the Pack Channel, Lauren Swingate of Wingate Studios, Jay Stoyan of the Disability Channel, for their support of all of our shows and replaying them. But we do have other shows in the network. If anyone is interested in doing any of those, let me know. Back to you, Kurt. Is there anything else?
Yeah, Emily, I want to start putting into your agenda and your script and the routine here at World of Ability is to ask our panel group here, are we good to do a photo session? We'll do a little paparazzi moment if everybody's game. And Emily, are you ready and prepared to take a screenshot for our World of Ability photo for May 11th, the day before Mother's Day here in the US?
Oh, we have
And
Barbara joining us.
it looks like we're gonna right in the nick of time have one more person. Maybe I don't know. We'll see if Barbara's gonna use her camera, but we're gonna continue on with Barbara. Are you able to activate your camera? Are you able to do video? We're gonna do a photo. Barbara, we're gonna give you a moment. We're setting up for a photo. Look at this. Let's get the spotlight. Look at that. It's like we planned it, folks. Once in a while, I have what some people call dumb luck. So
We're going to say queso in Spanish, not cheese, queso.
all right, everybody, say queso.
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 1, 2, 3, queso.
All right. So with that, we're gonna welcome in Barbara. And so Barbara,
She's a retired teacher.
you've got a couple or a few minutes, Barbara, that since you made it with our show, we're going to give you the microphone and give us your world of wisdom moment a little wow, WOW World of Wisdom. What do you got for us, Barbara? What's happening today for you?
I have wisdom. I really do, all about like the parent and grown children relationship, and what we're learning about love, and what we're learning about forgiveness and healing. But right now my son just came over, and yeah, and he's needing assistance, and that takes all the priority. But I wanted to tell you that my heart's with you guys, and of course with him too. And yeah, we're trying to figure out like where you can go for help when you need help, like the Shriners or the Lions Club. I know the Lions Club helps with seeing, and I don't know what the Shriners do, and the Masons, and I don't know who else there is.
May I
Yeah,
suggest the Rotary Club as well? Rotary
Rotary,
International?
that's it. Thank you.
Rotary
That's the one I
is
was
a
trying to-
voluntary organization. I am a Rotarian, but through direct membership in Great
Uh-huh.
Britain and Ireland. But there are clubs around the world. So maybe check in
Yeah.
with your local Rotary Club. And they
Thank
may
you
have
so much.
suggestions, even if it doesn't fit with what they're doing at present.
Uh-huh.
That
Thank
Lions
you.
Club would be
That's
another
what I
one.
needed to hear. Thank you
Yeah,
so much.
Try the Lions
Um,
Club as well.
Have a great week. And
what were you saying, Trevor? Try what?
Try the Lions Club. They also help out for various things like that, like the Rotary.
uh-huh.
Yeah,
The
Lions,
Moose Club, the Moose Lodge.
Moose
Mooses.
Lodge.
Mhm.
So we got Lions, Kiwanis, Rotary. I can insert Optimist Club, Moose Lodge, and don't
Oh,
forget
man.
your librarians. Go to
Wow.
your public libraries or your libraries, and they tend to collect community information like that, and check in with your municipal hall, town halls, village halls, city halls. All those entities should be there to help, and your social services and so forth. There should be lots of people in that field to make sure that
Are you hearing this? Oh man,
I
he was
always
outside. So okay, so let's see if I got it. So I got the Rotary, the Lions, the Moose, the
Kiwanis, the Optimists,
Kiwanis, the Optimist.
and I'm saying if
Mhm.
you want other insights to your local area, go to your librarians. They
Mhm.
tend to have something in the library on community resources, and then your government, your county, your government social services, and there should be different places you can go to get in the loop of finding all the people that know what you're looking for.
Mhm.
There's also Easter seals. And
Easter.
I think you can call 2112.
Yeah, 2-on-1. If you got that, that's very useful.
Mhm. So we came to the right place at the right time.
There we go.
No,
Impeccable timing. But with that, folks, that is our final thought. We have run out of time, and this is the dynamic that we say, hey, this is the minute that reminds you of why you keep coming back. It's what keeps you coming back. And so we are looking forward to you being back with us on our other programming here at the World of Ability Podcast Network. We talked about the World of Pets, and we have the Let's Be Trees program with Sherry here. So stay tuned with us. We appreciate all of you being out in our audience, and we'd like to ask if you would be inclined, please do share this video out to those in your network and help them understand that there's a network that is live streaming all week long in service to you and them. So with that, Emily, take us on out of here. I think that's a wrap for today. We invite all our panelists to stay on after if they'd like. If folks need to bounce on out of here and get on to other things, feel free, but we're going to keep the Zoom session going. But we're going to stop.